The knife is a Spyderco Polestar CTS BD1N. It's a factory second, but I was always interested in trying out the BD1N versus the regular BD1. This Polestar in BD1, in my last wave of testing, it beat out everything else in that wave of testing that I was doing. This current testing with the sandpaper on an established edge that's, well, I probably put about 8 edges on here. I got 80 cuts. Now, something like this 15V Manix, which didn't have enough edges, I got 320 cuts. However, with this nitrogen, I'm kind of curious what actually happens. You don't see too many people discussing the Polestar or the Alcyon. I'm a fan of these models. I appreciate Spyderco, what they do, especially with the Chinese cloning. The bird line is how to combat that, as opposed to waiting for government to make proper regulations. However, this video is not about that. Just to mention that this is my newest acquisition. But today's video, I'd like to talk about some of the heavy hitters in my testing. 15V on the Manix. Got 320 cuts on my sandpaper testing. It's right there. That's the roll I use. Normally, I'd like to have 5 edges before I actually start testing. This, I didn't have the luxury of doing that. However, 320 is a baseline performance. Only predict that it could go higher. It's at the basement level. Could be potential for more performance, but 320 still very good. K390 stretch. I got 300 cuts. I've done, I don't know, 6-7 edges on this guy. Sekicity K390 does phenomenal. Highly recommend it. Now, here's the thing. eBay prices are going to scalp you to get this 15V. You can pick up the K390 in any size that you really want, all the way down from like what, the Man Bug all the way to the Police. Whatever you need. I mean, the Police, last I checked, was $175. Phenomenal value for the price, and you don't have to deal with the thumb thugs to actually try getting one of these. Other heavy hitter, Maximit. I got 290 on this Maximit. I did get this particular knife hardness tested a while ago. I remember my Para 3 was harder, and my Maximit, my Manix lightweight, was actually softer than this, so this was like right in between. I got 290 with this particular PM2. Now, when it comes to ergonomics between the three, regardless of steel, I always take the stretch. To me, I think the stretch is superior over the PM2. And I'm not saying that any blade shape is bad, but I just connect with the stretch too. To me, it's more hand filling. I just enjoy the model, the design. I'm glad to see it in K390. With the PM2 versus the Maximit, or the Manix, I think I'm going to lean a little more towards the Manix right now, but it's so close, it's interchangeable. I enjoy both. I honestly feel like people need to learn how to actually put a little air, a little gap when they're actually cutting with the PM2, and they really need to actually swing a little more in the cuts, put a little gap in there, because if you hold it down tight, you're going to get a hot spot. if you open your hand up a little more, create a little air pocket, I feel like the ergonomics are much better. That's what works for me. Normally on the PM2, I go 400 grit edge. For the Manixes, I usually go up 800, 1,000 grit. I got 1,000 grit super vitrified diamond stone and the 400, so I can cater to whatever I like, how patterns I recognize myself cutting with. Now, in my testing, I noticed something that I don't think people discuss is how an edge actually breaks down. Now, when I'm testing Maximate, and I've tested it on multiple knives, I'm not an expert, but this is what I find, is that with Maximate, when it starts dulling, you'll be cutting something and you'll be struggling, and then all of a sudden it'll just zip through it like nothing. It's the weirdest thing that I've probably witnessed with Maximate, is that when it starts dulling, then all of a sudden it just gets this resurgence just out of thin air, like it's just Harry Potter stuff. That's one of the biggest gripes that I have against Maximate is, well, how it actually dulls out. Now, because I've tested all these relatively within the same week of each other, I actually got to witness how the edges actually break down in rapid time. Now, when I was testing these two, I tested right around the halfway mark what the actual sharpness was. It seemed like the K390 held more of its front end sharpness over the 15V. Understand that this 15V has only had 2 edges. Could have more potential, but this is what I saw. However, at that halfway point, the K390 seemed like it dropped much faster. It went through the working edge quicker, I should say, than the 15V. What I've noticed with the 15V is it moves very gradually. Some steels, it's like super sharp, and then all of a sudden it goes to the working edge, and then all of a sudden it dulls much faster. With the 15V, it was like gradual, like it was a slide. Sometimes it's like a stairs. I don't know how to explain that, but sometimes you'll be using a knife, and then all of a sudden it just, boom, you notice randomly like a major drop in sharpness. Not to say that this is bad, but 15V holds that slicing aggression that I really like. When I'm cutting things, I'm trying to use the most amount of blade as possible. I'm trying to start my cut here and try to use the entire length of the edge. Because if you're trying to, if you have it real thin and you're doing push cuts, you're only working in sections. I'd rather try utilizing the whole edge, so the whole edge blunts with all my normal tasks. So that way, instead of having like spots where the edge is just like completely sharp and other spots that are just completely dull, I'm trying to use as much of the edge as possible. Honestly, 15V is so hard to get. These two, K390, Maximate, Spyderco does a phenomenal job on S90V. That's another steel to actually check out. But honestly, for the stress-free, K390 is the way to go. And plus, you got more models than even Maximate to actually pick from. I like the stretch. To me, that's, probably one of my top 3 favorite Spydercos of all time. I've regulated this one to testing, but I'll probably get another one or just regrind this one whenever I'm done. I really like the ergos of the stretch, that back lock. I mean, it just feels like it just, I don't know, fits my hand perfectly. I don't know, I really like the stretch. However, out of all my production folders, this one has, well, in my sandpaper testing, it's tested the highest. Lots of enjoyment out of this knife. I think it's a stellar value if you can get it. Don't pay the eBay inflated prices. There's more models coming. Shaman, PM2, hopefully a military, 1 or 2. I'll take the 1 if possible, but whatever. However, I don't think you can go wrong as long as you got the right stones to actually enjoy these steels. I got plenty of stones. A lot of people have the Veneves, Atomas. They work well. Holding on the front end sharpness, I prefer more slicing aggression, personally, because I'm not trying to push down. It's actually more like, when I'm doing my cut testing, I'm trying to do more draw cuts and a little downward pressure. When people have the cardboard, they're doing 1 inch. So it's like, okay, you got to be contained to that 1 inch. So you're doing more aligned, like more of a push kind of diagonal. Okay. But that's because you're trying to be limited to 1 inch of cutting edge. What I'm doing with the sandpaper rolls is I'm trying to get all the length of the edge in my cut as possible, because I think that's more true to life. But hey, testing, it's like a time machine basically, because if I'm cutting something like that, and how many people cut abrasive sandpaper all day, every day? I mean, there's a variety of things that dull your knives, but cut testing is very important because it's a time machine. It's actually speeding up what you think the edge is actually going to do over days, weeks, whatever of use. So that's why I think cut testing is important, and it's always good to have a variety of different testing. Even, testing even simple steels just to see what you can actually get out of these. And here's the thing, it's just, do you enjoy the knife, not for the performance, or maybe you just enjoy how it feels ergonomically? Something like this. I've known Sean for a long time. Yeah, there's a major pride of ownership on owning something like this. I was lucky to get one. I know I'm lucky to get one. Something like this you could pick up every single day. That's why it's much easier for me to recommend something like this that's going to give you pretty close performance to this. If you don't like the FRN models, well then maybe go with the G10, the PM2. You can go the Para 3. You can even go the lightweight if the lightweight is your thing. Now the lightweight, I get hot spots when I'm cutting with it. Maybe I'm actually using it for harder stuff than I'm supposed to, but for whatever reason, the Manix lightweight, I prefer the G10. It feels more balanced in my hand during cutting. Other people like the lightweight. Hey, nope. Do whatever you feel is necessary, but I have to say, I prefer the stretch over the Manix lightweight, over the G10. No offense, Sean. Something like the PM2. We never got a military Maximate, so I'm kind of hoping we get a 15V version, but I don't know, maybe that's interesting to you guys. Because most of the time you see a lot of people comparing, they like the Manix, they like the PM2. I like them both for different reasons, but if I had to pick one for, the rest, I'd go this. And if I had one knife for life, I'm still taking that Sport Trapper, an M398.